the entire arena goes silent. Braun Breaker's music hits for the first time in weeks, and the crowd explodes. But this isn't a triumphant return. This is a man coming back with something to prove, with a message that's been building in his mind since Paul Heyman delivered that absolutely brutal attack that sidelined him. What Braun is about to say to Seth Rollins could fundamentally shift one of the most important power dynamics on WWE's entire roster. Let's talk about what this return means, why Braun Breaker coming back right now is potentially the most significant piece of the puzzle in the Seth Rollins narrative, and how this speculative scenario could completely reshape the Judgment Day faction's trajectory. First, understand what's been happening. Paul Heyman has positioned himself as the architect of everything. He's been the voice, the strategist, the brilliant mind behind the operations. Seth Rollins has been the executor, the physical force carrying out the plans. That's been working perfectly for weeks. But then Braun Breaker steps in, and suddenly the dynamic gets tested in ways the faction never anticipated. Heyman sees a threat he needs to eliminate, so he does what Heyman does best, he takes matters into his own hands and removes the obstacle violently. The attack itself is significant. It's not just physical violence. It's a statement. Heyman's saying that he will do whatever it takes to maintain the power structure he's built. He's willing to put his hands on you. He's willing to cross lines that others won't cross. That's the kind of ruthlessness that defines Heyman's entire character legacy. But it's also the kind of action that creates unintended consequences. Now Braun Breaker is back, and he's standing in that ring with something to say. This is where the psychology gets absolutely fascinating. Braun's not the type of competitor who forgets. He's not the type who lets aggression slide without response. He's a breaker, and breakers have a legacy built on standing up to anyone, anywhere, anytime. So when he addresses Seth Rollins directly, it's not just about the attack. It's about the question of loyalty, trust, and whether Seth Rollins is really in control of his own narrative or if he's just become Paul Heyman's puppet. Consider what Braun could be saying. Maybe it's something like, Seth, I came to test myself against the best. I came to prove I belong in this company's main event picture. But what I've learned is that you're not even in control of your own story anymore. Paul Heyman made a choice. Paul Heyman attacked me. Paul Heyman decided that I was a problem that needed to be solved. And you let it happen. You stood by and let your stable's architect make decisions about who gets hurt and who doesn't. So my question for you is simple, are you a wrestler, or are you just Paul Heyman's hands? That's the kind of message that could fracture everything. The beauty of this angle is how it leverages the existing tension within the Judgment Day structure. The faction has always had multiple power centers. There's the physical presence of the wrestlers. There's the strategic brilliance of Paul Heyman. Those things have coexisted relatively peacefully because everyone's been winning. But the moment doubt creeps in, the moment one of those power centers is challenged, suddenly the whole thing becomes unstable. And Braun Breaker is the perfect person to create that instability. He's young, he's hungry, he doesn't have years of established storylines and relationships to fall back on. He's willing to burn bridges because he's still building his legacy. A veteran might think twice about confronting both Heyman and Rollins simultaneously. Braun doesn't think twice. He's here to prove he's one of the best, and sometimes that means taking shots at the establishment. Think about how this plays into Seth Rollins' character psychology. Seth's always been a complicated personality. He's been a visionary leader, but he's also been willing to align himself with dangerous, manipulative people when it serves his purposes. Heyman is a master manipulator. Having Braun come back and question whether Seth's truly in control of his own decisions is genuinely threatening to Seth's self-image. Seth sees himself as this brilliant architect of chaos, this mastermind pulling strings. Having someone suggest he's actually just following Heyman's blueprint would infuriate him. Now here's where it gets really interesting from a narrative standpoint. What if Braun's message actually plants a seed of doubt? What if Seth starts questioning Heyman's motivations? Heyman attacked Braun without explicit authorization from Seth. Heyman made a strategic decision unilaterally. Is that the action of someone who truly respects their leader, or is it the action of someone consolidating power? Those kinds of questions can absolutely destabilize a faction. The potential outcomes are fascinating. Maybe this leads to Seth and Braun eventually coming together against Heyman and the rest of the Judgment Day. Maybe this leads to Seth doubling down on his loyalty to Heyman to prove he's not being controlled. Maybe this creates a new main event program between Seth and Braun that forces them to settle things once and for all. All of those possibilities exist because of this one return moment. What makes Braun's message so powerful is that it's not just about the attack. It's about challenging the fundamental structure of power in one of WWE's most important factions. Every single person in the Judgment Day would be watching this moment and thinking about what it means for them. Does Heyman get to make decisions unilaterally? Do the wrestlers have agency, or are they just the physical manifestation of Heyman's will? These are existential questions about power and autonomy within the group. From an audience perspective, this is exactly the kind of tension that makes wrestling narratives compelling. We're not just watching two guys have a match. We're watching the fracturing of alliances, the questioning of loyalty, and the potential dissolution of an entire power structure. That's the kind of storytelling that keeps people invested week after week. Think about how this moment would reverberate through WWE's hierarchy. The Judgment Day is supposed to be one of the company's most formidable forces. But if they're fractured, if there's genuine dissension about who's actually in charge and whether the power structure is legitimate, suddenly they become vulnerable. Other factions can exploit those cracks. Other wrestlers can see opportunities they didn't see before. And Braun Breaker, in the middle of all this, suddenly becomes more than just a rising heavyweight. He becomes a catalyst for change. He becomes the person who walked into a power structure and had the audacity to question it. That's the kind of boldness that defines main event level competitors. That's the kind of moment that propels someone into genuine prominence. The timing of this return is also crucial. If Braun comes back right when the Judgment Day seems most unified, his questioning would be less impactful. But if he comes back when there's already been a hint of instability, when Paul Heyman's made a questionable decision, when Seth might already be second-guessing things, then Braun's message lands with maximum force. It's not introducing doubt where there was certainty. It's validating doubt that's already starting to form. This is what makes professional wrestling storytelling so powerful. One return, one promo, one message can shift the entire balance of power on a television program. Braun Breaker doesn't need to defeat everyone in the Judgment Day tonight. He just needs to say the right thing, plant the right seed, and let the psychology of the situation do the work. That's main event level wrestling thinking. If you want to dive deeper into how these faction dynamics work, how seemingly stable alliances crack under pressure, how single moments can reshape entire narratives, and how wrestlers like Braun Breaker step into the main event picture not just through physical dominance but through psychological warfare, then you need to be subscribed to WWE Express. We break down these character arcs, these power structure shifts, and these speculative storylines that make professional wrestling endlessly fascinating. Subscribe to WWE Express, and thanks for watching.